Welcome to this week's episode of Trista's Plate Story podcast. I'm Trista Polo from iwokeupawesome.com, and I am your host. Each week we learn the story behind that vanity plate. You know, the one you saw driving down the road? What did it say? What did it mean? Why did they choose it? Welcome. I'm so excited to have Simon with us today from Vegas, Nevada. Welcome, Simon.
Hi, thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for being on. Now we're going to talk about your plate, which is, you have two plates, SINLIZ1 and SINLIZ2. And I'd love to hear about those plates and why you chose them.
Okay, so coming from Vegas, everybody, when they see myself driving SINLIZ1 or my wife driving SINLIZ2, they automatically assume it's something to do with Sin City or something like that. It's actually far more simple than that. My name is Simon. And back in England, everyone called me Si. And my wife's name is Elizabeth. Everyone calls her Liz. And we are Si and Liz. Si and Liz, SINLIZ. And in fact, when we got engaged back in 1999, I was a child groom. When we got engaged, it was quite a cool thing at the time. Now it sounds horribly dated, but back then it was a cool thing to have when you sent out your engagement party invitations, you would have it from a cool kind of hip, James loves Nancy at hotmail.com, Kathy and Graham's engagement party at yahoo.co.uk. So we had Si and Liz at hotmail.com. And so for a long time, people referred to us as SINLIZ or Si and Liz. And so when we moved to Vegas, and I saw that as opposed to the UK, where vanity plates are horrendously expensive, here they were reasonably affordable. I decided that I would get SINLIZ1. My wife would get SINLIZ2. And
I love it.
There we are.
There we are. I mean, see, on the surface, it's like SINLIZ from Vegas. People would make a lot of assumptions that have nothing to do with the story you just shared.
Absolutely. Of course, the joke is that I'm the Sin and she's the Liz, which is probably about right anyway.
Is that probably about right? Now, you're originally from England. What part?
I'm originally from Manchester.
Are you both from Manchester?
I'm from Manchester and she's from Liverpool. So Liverpool is a place where everybody steals things. No, I'm kidding. But it has the reputation of being more of a, shall we say, crime-ridden hellhole, where Manchester is a beautiful palatial utopia where everybody is nice to each other and crosses old ladies over the road at all times.
That sounds amazing. Although, isn't Liverpool where the Beatles are from? So that's the only thing I know it about.
Liverpool is where the Beatles left.
Escaped from.
Exactly, yeah.
Very good. Now, I want to delve into this plate thing a little bit, because you and I talked about this when we first met.
Yeah.
And I asked you if you had SINLIZ in the UK, and you scoffed at me because of the ridiculousness of my question. Little did I know that the license plates are so expensive and you have to get them through an auction.
Yes, that's right. I did. I remember scoffing, and scoffing is something that I do extremely well.
So you're British.
Absolutely, yeah. We scoff with the best.
Yes, you scoff.
So yeah. In the UK, the Driving and Vehicle Licensing Agency is what DVLA stands for. It's the DMV equivalent in the UK, and it's a central government as opposed to a local government agency, and they assign certain what we call number plates. These number plates are assigned anything that resembles in any way a word or initials or anything like that, because I think they're generated at random. They are kind of put to one side and then they're auctioned off. It's a way for the department to generate revenue. So the idea of anybody coming along and going, I want to register, I'm called Simon and there has to be kind of letters and numbers. So I'm going to register 51MON to make Simon. And by the way, I did look into doing this back in the UK. It'd cost like $50,000. All right.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, what probably happened already was somebody, when that license plate was first released back in, I don't know, the 70s or early 80s or whatever, somebody went, yeah, I'll buy that for, $5,000, $10,000, pounds, whatever. And they've sat on it as an investment. And people invest in these things. So something then, which would have been worth, a few $1,000s would appreciate in value and be a
Oh my
genuine
goodness.
investment asset.
I actually looked it up. There's a search you can do, and I didn't really get it because I don't really understand the UK numbering system with plates, but I couldn't seem to find even one that was an actual word because they had so many number combos that were required. And even those were between 500 and 1,200 pounds. And some of them weren't even available without being up for auction, which means who knows what they could be worth when they finally get purchased.
That's right.
Very different.
Yeah.
So my dream of having a UK license plate on my Plate Story podcast, probably an overreach. But maybe fingers crossed someday.
I think it's certainly possible. And there are people in the UK that do have them. I think what would be interesting is to see how they've managed, how they have been creative enough to formulate their name, their brand, whatever, in this rather rigid structure of combining letters and numbers. That I think will be quite interesting.
Yeah. Now you moved to Vegas. How long ago?
A little over 7 years ago, back in July 2013.
Wow, awesome. And you did that to establish a local US base for your company. Tell us a little about your company and what you guys do.
Okay, so I am the founder and CEO of the SINLIZ Group, which is SINLIZ Human Capital, which is a headhunting, executive search, and headhunting firm specializing in the executive search in the technology space. I'm also the founder of the SINLIZ Academy, which we started at the end of last year, which is a training and development company specifically to help individuals who are looking to achieve life transformation by changing jobs. The point being that lots and lots of people are unhappy in their lives because they're in the wrong job. They're unhappy in their jobs. So if we can help them change their jobs and be happier in their jobs, then they'll be happier in their lives as well. All right. So that's a training and development company, mainly through video, but also through kind of like virtual coaching. And then we've just launched the SINLIZ Incubator, which is a training and development company for scaling businesses who are looking to achieve best practice and scale by having the right people doing the right jobs in the right positions.
That's awesome. And you and your wife, do you both work that business together?
We do. I mean, she's also in the business. She was a co-founder of SINLIZ. She runs the research side of SINLIZ Human Capital and also oversees the traffic of SINLIZ Academy and SINLIZ Incubator.
That's awesome. So as the founder and CEO,
Bit lower. Founder and CEO.
Founder. Oh, sorry. Let me try it again. The founder and CEO. I'm not James Earl Jones. As the founder and CEO, what's your role these days all the way in Vegas? Because you founded this company in the UK, yes?
Yeah, that's right. So I'm surrounded by some very, very good people. One or two terrible ones. No, I'm kidding. They're all fabulous. No, I'm surrounded by very good people. And my role predominantly is defining strategy, leading the company through. I mean, we had some pretty rough sailing a few months ago. You may have heard there was a small pandemic that happened. So
I heard about that. Yeah.
So there had to be a little bit of guiding the good ship SINLIZ through some rather choppy waters. So yeah, it's a classic kind of leadership role that I have, but also an ambassadorial role. So I'm the kind of premier facia of the company. I'm the one that's kind of out there doing the kind of song and dance routine in the media. I'm the primary spokesman for the company. A part of that strategy was me launching our podcast, which I host. And yes, that's basically what kind of keeps me busy. Oh, and I'm also assistant math teacher of the Simon and Liz homeschool.
Ah, sure. That's probably the most important job you have.
Yeah, I used to be a math teacher in my very early days. So
really,
yeah.
How did you go from math teacher to founder and CEO?
Beautifully put.
I'm working on it.
You did great. I was a math teacher while I was working my way through college, and I went from school into kind of bouncing through a few different jobs, and then I started my own company, which, funnily enough, totally unrelated, but just there's a little bit of poetic symmetry to this, was installing and selling car alarm and car entertainment systems. So kind of in the whole kind of car milieu, as it were. So I grew that, I did all right with that. There was one competitor in particular, I was really eating his lunch. And so he just decided, they were bigger than me, but they were, I was really kind of, skinning them. And so they bought me out. So I was like, okay, fine. So at the age of 24, I was like, no, sorry, 22. I was like, well, now what do I do? Okay, I can't retire, right? But okay, now what do I do? So I it's funny to think about it now, it's quite twee, but every Thursday, the Manchester Evening News, the local paper, had a job section. So I kind of go leafing through the job section, and I see an advertisement in the job section for this company that was advertising all these different jobs. And I thought, oh, that looks quite interesting. These jobs look quite, some are in sales, some are in marketing. Sales and marketing was a lot of what I was doing for the company I just sold. In fact, that was pretty much all I was doing. Because, by the way, for a guy that ran a company doing car alarms, I knew nothing at all about how to install car alarms. So I called this company up, and they were like, yeah, come down for an interview. So I went in, and I was so naive. I didn't even realize that this company was a recruitment company that were advertising for their clients. Right? I didn't realize. So they were talking, and it was actually the CEO of the company. His name was Mark, who interviewed me. And by the end of the interview, he said, you do realize we're actually hiring internally, and we think you'd be a great fit. Do you want to come and work here? And I was like, yeah, great. You and I have really got on. It's been great, fantastic. He said, fantastic. Okay, great, brilliant. And I said, okay, just one small question. He said, yeah. I said, what exactly do you guys do? And because I was like, this guy was so charismatic, he was so inspirational, that I was like, I am going to learn from this guy. And I don't care whether it takes me 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 years. I'm going to just suck up as much as I can from this guy, because I can just learn so much from him, right? He was just such an inspiration to me in that brief time. And so he said, oh, okay, we're headhunters. This is what we do. This is how we do it, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. Is it sales? Pretty much. Is it helping people? Yeah. Right. Where do I sign? And I worked with him for 4 years. I was basically his right-hand man for 4 years. Then I decided I wanted to try and get more of some more corporate experience in headhunting. So I went to work for a larger company, and I worked for a guy called Chris. And I met the most amazing, amazing person called Nicola, who subsequently became a business partner of mine. That she's one of my senior content people at SINLIZ2 incubator, and she's an amazing, amazing human being. And 4 years later, we started SINLIZ2. Or should I say, I founded and CEO'd SINLIZ2.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that you kind of kept the whole sales and marketing thread.
I think so. I mean, I think the biggest demand on any startup, on any business founder, is sales. Because at the end of the day, if you think of, I mean, you can use a number of different analogies, but the one that I favor the most is cash is the oxygen that's going to keep the business going, and sales are the lungs. It's that simple. If your lungs aren't working, if you're not bringing in the oxygen, then the thing's never going to get off the ground. It's just going to die before it starts. And so it's really, really critical that the majority of the time that that is assigned to the business from everybody in the business, if the majority of their activities and the time they are spending is not revenue generating activity, then the business will fail. It's that simple.
Absolutely. I love the analogy of the lungs and the oxygen. I think that's brilliant. Now, you mentioned you have a podcast.
Yes.
Let's dive into that a little bit. What's the name of your podcast?
The podcast is called The Conference Room.
Oh my.
The Conference Room.
I think you need to get a little lower. The Conference Room.
The Conference Room.
Nice. You do it better than I do.
It's only because I'm sitting lower down.
Yeah.
So the Conference Room is basically, it's me talking to experts in a whole raft of areas appertaining to starting and growing successful businesses. So to kind of take it back a little bit, when we were formulating the concept of doing a podcast, I thought to myself, I can think of nothing more boring or dull than hearing me talk about business for 20, 30 minutes. I would probably rather put a knitting needle in my eye than put myself through that. So why would I invite the podcasting listening world to participate in such a painful exercise? However, I've been interviewing in a professional capacity for over 20 years as a headhunter. So I'm pretty good at asking questions. So what I think would be a good idea, and market testing suggested that it probably is me and my colleagues thinking about, right, okay, when we've all started businesses, right? And in those periods, there are lots of questions that you have, whether it's about sales or marketing or finance or talking to investors or raising funding or generating leads or whatever it is, right? Whatever your kind of business is, there are a number of areas that you're going to know about, a number of areas you're going to know very little about, and a number of areas that you're thinking, oh, is this the right thing or not? So you're going to want to have some education in, and anything from, I've identified this problem and I know nothing about it. I've identified this situation. I think I know what the right thing to do is. Can I just validate it? Or I'm doing this and I'm certain it's the right thing to do, but it would just be nice to know that this is best practice, right? So the conference room is me talking to experts in their field about a wide spectrum of areas of interest to small and scaling businesses.
I love that.
Very little of it is my expertise because, frankly, I have very little.
Well, I would disagree with that because you sold a business and have grown a business and have moved a business to a whole other country. You're a global founder and CEO.
Yep.
Business owner, right? So I would disagree with you, but I think that's great. And you have plenty of people to talk to, right? Because every client you have that you do recruiting and headhunting and placement for would probably be good potential guests.
Absolutely. And we're very lucky that we can be quite discerning. So we have, I mean, I've got a wide number of people that I think would be very interested in coming on the podcast. The two criteria I have, and this is actually the same when I get invited onto podcasts. The two criteria I have are very simple. Number one, they have to be genuine experts in their field. So somebody who's kind of played at it and not been very good, then thanks, but no thanks. So there has to be genuine value there, all right? And the other thing is there's got to be a chemistry. I have to actually get on with the person because, frankly, if I'm not entertained, I don't think the wider podcasting listening public will be either. So I have to actually enjoy it. And frankly, my podcast in many ways is very similar to this one, where I'm sure the people that are listening to this feel that they're being invited into a conversation between two friends. That's very much how I have structured my podcast as well.
Yeah, I created a podcast that I would enjoy listening to.
There's a broadcaster that I listen to. He actually does a podcast as well. There's a broadcaster I listen to on the BBC, which you may have heard of. It's a small radio and broadcasting organization in England. And
yes, I think they started the pandemic, right?
No, they started broadcasting. Anyway, they probably the leading broadcaster on the BBC is a gentleman called Simon Mayo, of whom I am a huge fan. And I remember listening to an interview that he did, as in someone interviewing him about broadcasting in general. And he said that when the programs that he creates are programs that he would either watch on TV or listen to on the radio. And when he's broadcasting, he talks to one person. He doesn't think about the big general listening public. He talks to one person. So like right now, I feel very much that I'm talking to you. I'm ignoring the fact that there may well be, hundreds of thousands of people that are going to be listening at some stage. Right now, I'm just talking to you. And I feel in return that you're just talking to me. And again, ignoring the fact there are hundreds of thousands of people that are also going to be listening. And again, that's very much how I've tried to structure the format of my own podcast as well.
Yeah, I love that. That's actually a good presenter tip as well. So if you're presenting, you never say, how does everybody feel? You say, how do you feel?
Yeah.
What does everybody think? What do you think? Because there's only one person. It's not that you're talking to a room full of people or thousands of people. You're talking to 1,000 individuals. Yeah. Right. Now you have a toolkit.
I
that
do.
I would love to hear about. So tell me about your toolkit.
Okay, so we have just released the Ultimate Job Hunting Toolkit, which is a toolkit specifically for people who are either unhappy or are thinking about it's time for a change in their job. Okay, we talked a little earlier about my passion of transforming lives through transforming people's careers, and the Job Hunting Toolkit is the ideal entry point for that journey. Okay, so the toolkit consists of all of the things that you're going to need to get you from, I think I need to change my job, but I don't know what job to change it to, how to articulate your experience in a fantastic resume that's going to draw interest from the companies and the jobs that you identified using the previous tool, all the way through to how to prepare for interview and how to really wow your interviewers and crush your competition through interviewing really effectively, how to structure a pipeline of opportunities so that rather than just having one job offer coming in, having multiple job offers coming in and they all coming in at the same time. So rather than you having to kind of like just pick the one because it's the one that came and it's better than the awful thing I'm doing right now, you have 2, 3, maybe 4 job opportunities and you get to pick the very best. And
I
all of
love
that
that.
is available in the Ultimate Job Hunting Toolkit, which is found at ultimatejobhuntingtoolkit.com or on my own website, simonlader.com.
I love it. Job hunting, it's very different than it was when I was looking for jobs 20 years ago. And I can't believe
When
it's
you were
that long
5?
ago. But yes, exactly. When I was
Right.
5.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm young like you. We both started as infants in our professional
Absolutely,
careers.
absolutely.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, to navigate that these days is so challenging, especially for someone who's not growing up in this current environment, but somebody like myself who's maybe, 35, 40, 45, 50. The job hunting market is so different than it was when those people were getting jobs.
100%. I cannot imagine how intimidating it must be for somebody who is very accomplished in their career, right? Has been doing maybe working the same job for say 5, 6, maybe 10 years, all right?
Mhm.
Want to change because maybe their company has suffered some ill fortune, maybe there's been a change of leadership and they're not enjoying who they're working with anymore, maybe they just feel stale and want to change.
Maybe a pandemic happened.
Yeah, they're seriously, maybe they were furloughed, whatever,
Yeah.
economic reasons, whatever. For any of these reasons, they might find themselves in a situation where they either want or need to make a change. Okay. And if they haven't done this for a while, then hearing terms like job boards, LinkedIn profiles, ATS, any of this stuff, and they're going to be like, what? Who, what? For some people, just the idea of sitting down and writing a resume, they'd be like, I genuinely don't know where to start. Okay. So the beauty of the toolkit is that it guides people through all that process. And for those who need additional help, there's a video series that accompanies it. And for those that would like even more help, we offer a full mentoring service as well. So all of that's available. But I think the core and key message is number one, your life is not a dress rehearsal, and you must not waste your life being in a job that gives you unhappiness. And once you've internalized that, and you don't have to, the same way people, I think now, and over the last maybe 10 years or so, it's become societally acceptable to not have to endure a toxic relationship with a partner or a spouse. I think that people now need to realize they do not need to have a toxic relationship with their job. Okay. Now, having internalized that, the next thing for people to know is that there is help available. They never need to feel that the changes that they want to make are unattainable because they don't know where to start. The help is available.
That's really powerful. Thank you for making sure that's true. That's really great. I
It's
love
something I feel
it.
very strongly about. I'd say if I can just leave you with one teeny weeny story.
Please.
Before I found headhunting, actually before I started the car alarm company, I was working in a job, and I'd only been there for a short time, and it was a telemarketing, hammering the phones job, and I really wasn't happy. It really made me very unhappy. And I remember talking to my dad, and my dad told me that he had spent probably 4 or 5 years training in the UK and then also elsewhere to be a confectioner, right? A pastry chef, what we call here a pastry chef, right? And he, after he graduated and got his licenses and whatever, he went to work in a bakery. Now, my dad, he was all about detail and perfection and just, he was a real artisan, okay? Unfortunately, the bakery that he was working for, and this was when he was in his early 20s, right? The bakery he was working for was just like stack them high, sell them, get them out. It was all about quantity, not about quality. And he was working there for a couple of years. And remember, this is probably the mid 60s. And then it was a case of, and certainly in the north of England, you've got a job, be happy you've got a job, right? So for a good couple of years, my dad was utterly miserable in his job, miserable, okay? And of all people, it was his uncle, who I believe is still alive, my great uncle, who took my dad under his wing and guided him into finding a completely different career, a career that my dad loved. He went on to be extremely successful in, of all things, office equipment, selling office equipment and selling it through to businesses and whatever, and had a very, very, very successful career doing that, all because a kindly uncle identified that his life was miserable because he was simply in the wrong job. And I think we all need that kindly uncle. Everybody needs that person in their life, either physically or remotely, to say to them, if you're not happy in your job, and if you're unhappy from most of the waking hours, from when you wake up on a Monday morning till you get to sleep on a Friday night, if most of those waking hours are making you unhappy, your life will be unhappy. And you only get one life, okay? My dad passed away in 2012. And thank God for the majority of his working life, he was very happy. But that would have been very different had his uncle not put his arm around his shoulder and changed this completely. And I was very, very lucky in my early 20s that my dad did the same thing for me. And I want to pay it forward and help other people.
So a message from your kindly Uncle Simon. If you're not happy and following your passion, there is an answer, and it is the ultimate job hunting toolkit.
It is, absolutely.
That's awesome. Now, I do always like to turn the tables and ask you if you have one question you'd like to ponder toward me before we wrap up. Do you have a question for me?
I absolutely do, which is...
Okay, I'm ready.
I have an aquarium in my house, and some of the machinery for my aquarium is disguised, obscured by, if you like, potted plants that always die. And I noticed just over your shoulder, you have the most beautiful, I think it's a rubber plant, if I can see, if I'm not mistaken, that looks beautiful. My question is, how do you manage to keep your plant alive when I seem to be the kiss of death to mine?
That's a great question. So the first thing you have to do is buy plants that don't die. Plants that no matter what you do to them, they somehow figure out how to live. They're like the roaches of plants. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is you need to be married or roommates with someone who remembers to water said roach plants. And third, just give the rest to the plant and the universe and hope for the best. I also have a black thumb. I can't take credit for the plant behind me. In fact, throughout my life, I love having greenery around me. I have this big, huge picture window right next to me. There's this big, beautiful tree that sits right outside. I love the look of green, especially natural green in my life. But I also have a black thumb. So this plant, I have one behind me, one over there, and one in the bathroom. It's the only plant we have in the house, except, hold on, see? So there's also this thing here. Do you see it?
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
It's the succulent. But unfortunately, its brother didn't do as well. This is the video version only, you guys. This is video only content right here.
Let me describe what we're seeing. It's a lovely green ceramic plant pot that has a very beautiful small handheld plant on one side and what only can be described as a nuclear holocaust of vegetation on the other.
Yeah, so plants in my life sort of hit or miss, but that was a fun question.
There we go. Glad I could oblige.
Yes, exactly. I've had so much fun with you today, Simon. I really appreciate you being on.
It's been a genuine pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on, Trista.
Yeah, and I wish you all the best with your toolkit and all of your ventures. Is there any last word or last comment you'd like to share before we close out?
Only for people to remember that life is not a dress rehearsal, and if you're not happy, it's up to you to change it.
Perfect. Perfect last word to end on. Thanks, Simon. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Trista's Plate Story Podcast. Please subscribe to Trista's Plate Story Podcast to get the story behind all those vanity plates driving with you on the road. And if you would like to nominate the owner of a license plate, including you, or visit any of our partners and sponsors, come and see us at platestory.com. That's PL8STORY.com and give us the details. If you enjoyed this episode, please drop a review and give us a share. I'm Trista Polo, wishing you well on the road to your next adventure.